Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like na 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 na. For my top 10, top 10, na 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 na. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Gary Vee, and my take on his top 50 rules for success. Enjoy.
If you, even for a second, think it's a good idea for Apple and Google and Facebook to help you be less addicted, you are on the path of losing. You don't like Instagram? Delete it. The second we allow ourselves to let the machines help us, help ourselves, is the second you become more vulnerable. I believe that.
Could you explain that more?
Sure. Like, you want Apple to limit the amount of time you're on Instagram for you? Yeah. Like, you think that's the way, that's what, you want that? Mazel tov, take it. But like, I promise you, then there's gonna be the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. You're either social media is exposing us, it's not changing us. There is no social media, brother. They're empty pipes. Social media doesn't make you mean. Social media doesn't make you insecure. You're insecure, you're mean. We're getting exposed, not changed. We're addicted to human interaction. The reason the world exists in a world where we've had atomic bombs for 70 years is we like each other. We're not addicted to social media. We are interactive creatures. You're addicted to people. Cool, you don't want to be on Instagram? Go read Vogue. Knock yourself out. This is a very fun thing for me to watch evolve. People don't like being held accountable. So, a lot of things, the way that these platforms claim they're addictive is the way a lot of things are addictive. Are we gonna ban pretty people? Are we gonna limit our time to watching comedy? Are we gonna limit the time we listen to music? This is the demonization of technology. Let me give you a really good piece of advice. Go read the articles around the kaleidoscope. I'm being dead serious. Go Google the early articles around the kaleidoscope. You'll think you're reading about Instagram. History's got all the answers. I could not be in this program because I failed all my classes, but the one class I was good at was history, and it is the continuous framework of how I think about a lot of this stuff. Literally, the articles of the kaleidoscope are making the same arguments now. So, if you have FOMO, it's because you have levels of insecurity that are raging, which has a lot more to do with the way you were parented and where you grew up and the natural DNA you were given, not Snapchat. So how do I think it's gonna play out? In its worst, our government gets disproportionately involved, which will be fine. I could care less. Just so everybody knows, I care about attention, not social media. So if we all stop doing social media, I'm gonna figure out where your eyes and ears are going. You're gonna go somewhere. We're not locking ourselves up in a room. So I don't give a f. Google and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and LinkedIn can disappear off the face of the earth tomorrow, and I'd probably be the single happiest person because my most comfortable state is reacting quickly to where attention goes. I just feel bad for any human being that thinks that's gonna help them, because they're gonna find something else to complain about or to be controlled by. This is an internal framework conversation, not an external technology conversation. I'm really in rarefied air of like deep obsession with my process and enjoyment and lack of anxiety from it and lack of burnout from it. I think I hit my crescendo. I think I'm more of an artist. I don't think people realize that business women and men are actually, there's a certain version of us that are artists that genuinely like this more than anything. Like singing, like Beyonce's a workaholic.
Yeah.
You know, like Kobe was a workaholic.
Obsessing over their craft, their art form, their expression. Yeah.
So for me, like we demonize it in entrepreneurship and corporate life, but we don't in art. We put artists, oh, he's in the studio all the time. Wow. You know, painting all the time. Wow. Cooking and traveling the world to buy food. Wow. Business. Oh, he's going to burn out. He's going to suicidal.
Why is that? Is that just because of the old way of thinking, like getting burnt out in the corporate world of doing a job you hate?
Money. You know, I don't think people like Mark Teixeira made $213 million playing baseball. But if some entrepreneur makes 30 million, they get demonized. It's just culture. And it's okay. Like, I don't think that's wrong, right, or indifferent. It's just the obvious observation, right? We demonize the startup founder or the businesswoman much, much more than the entertainer that makes way more money. What you need to do if you have this mission accomplished is worry about your actions, not anybody else's. The biggest problem in our society right now is everybody worries about everybody's actions but their own. On every side of the equation. So what I would tell you to do is what I'm doing for a living, which is I have unbelievable social wants of kindness for the world, but I'm not gonna allow my friends to tell me how to do that. My friends tell me I need to be a keyboard warrior on Twitter. I think they're full of shit and trying to look good on social media, but don't live their truth.
So it's about understanding the unique perspective that you bring and not letting other people kind of like play with that.
In action, meaning continue to do your podcast, continue to put out content, continue to wear your t-shirt, but not worry about what anybody else is doing with it. Because when you try to boil the ocean, you don't.
What's been your biggest fear in all of this? Or do you feel like you're pretty fear-proof at this moment with everything you've been through?
I'm fear-proof because I'm willing to go to zero.
Yeah. You can live on in a small apartment and, you know, live at your parents' house.
I really can, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. Like, this has proven it to me even more. You know, any 0.0001% of me that thought, well, I've been saying this for the last 2 years, am I full of shit, has completely gone away.
Yeah.
Like, I don't fear because I don't value things and money. My biggest fear is my parents getting sick. Mm-hmm. Like, my biggest fear is like somebody getting sick and dying, nothing else. Like, business, I can always, like, I'm too capable, right? Like, you know, back to the thing you brought up, back to why you were an Olympian, back to like why you beat me anything when we were on Summit at Sea, ping pong, like whatever, basketball, like you aren't worried when it comes to sport, you know, your mind just goes into, this is going to be a good situation for me.
Yeah.
And for
I feel
me,
comfortable.
Yeah. And for me, that's business. Like, I know for a fact that if I became a 100% full-time garage sale, thrift store, Amazon flipper, that I'd make $1 million a year. Yeah. I know that for fact. So what the hell am I? Yeah. And that doesn't take into account that I've built a brand. And sure, my brand would take a hit if all my businesses went to zero. But the reality is, America's funny, man. Like, there's people following and helping O.J. Simpson. There's, you know, Wolf of Wall Street. Like this is a country that gives second, third, fourth chances regardless. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I'm already at a place right now where between brand and capability and humility, I'm bulletproof.
Yeah. Also, if you want to have more self-belief and more self-confidence, I have designed a free training program just for you, where every day for the next 254 days, I'll send you an email with an unlisted video to help you boost your confidence. The science says it can take up to 254 days of consecutive action to build a habit. And so I want you to build the habit of self-belief and self-confidence. It's 100% free. The link to join is in the description below.
I really think mindset is everything. And so you've got to really decide, are you going to be positive about things or negative about things? Seek out your friend's friend who brings positive vibes and make them part of your world, and cut out your homie from college that thinks the world sucks. Watch what that addition and subtraction does to your life. You don't just sit in your room hoping and then something lucky happens. Nobody just knocks on your house's door and says, congratulations, you've been awarded this. Luck comes from being in the right spot. The reality is, I know what's going on in the Vayner world. Obviously, I know what's going on in the broad sense, but I spend almost no time auditing what other brands are doing. And plus, if we're talking from a brand standpoint, well has to be reflected in business results. There's a ton of people that are gonna win awards today that business is declining dramatically. And I struggle with that because the point of that creativity is to drive a business result in this context, or get people to vote, or inspire a movement, or cure a disease. Like, what's the point of output if you're not getting the end result? I think the reason my voice is resonating is I'm not affected by anybody else right now. I'm only affected by the way people are reacting to me, which allows me to continue to build in the purity of human truths without blending and trying to be like.
So you're clearly a very busy guy with controlling your public image and...
You'll appreciate this real quick on that front, just to jump in, I'll let you finish. I give zero thoughts to controlling my public image. Zero. I mean, my team's in here. I don't even look at what they're making. The way I control my public image is by living my truth and letting the chips fall. It's the most liberating thing of all time. I don't think about it at all. I do think my parents, for me, and they parented all three kids a little bit differently, but they're like, they were such workaholics. Both my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but like did everything. And I think people very much underestimate stay-at-home moms as workaholics. Like, she just worked her face off, no help.
No breaks.
No breaks. We were all spoiled kids from the fact of laundry and doing our bed, and she cooked everything. And then my dad came home late and cooked for him. Like, she worked her face off. So they could have created a little more balance. We only took 2 family vacations. So they taught me work ethic, kindness, everything. Everything I am is them. But I do think the thing that we have more is balance with, leisure and offsetting 24/7 work. But that makes sense. It's generational. They came here with nothing, and it was 24/7 work. And I have so much of that in me, but I've had the luxury of my talents leading to a success that's allowed me to post. Listen, that's how my first 10 years professionally looked too, but now being able to take a little bit of time. And so maybe a little balance, because I think they regret that. And so you try to take your parents' regrets and not have the same. Yeah. And so I look at that. I care about people's emotions and happiness and overall livelihood, not what they produce for me in the short term as an employee of my company. I don't know what else to say. I care more about, I look at our voluntary retention numbers 10 times more than I look at our profit margin. And I'm an HR-driven CEO, not a CFO-driven CEO. Here's why. I want to create clarity for everybody who's listening. Because I'm playing forever. I own my businesses. So for me, I can do things that lead to retention and a real relationship, because I'm not held accountable to Wall Street or a public market or a board, or am so money hungry that I want a yacht. And I believe most are. What is amazing about the volume model is the notion of marketing for the sake of better marketing. So what happens after you post those 78 is you start getting quant and qual feedback. And what you do with that feedback is you make the next decision, which is, are you gonna write more about that? Or has there been such a huge reaction to people's response on what 5G actually means to their day-to-day, not just faster and better battery, but how our entire world changes when you create that speed of information, how that actually makes autonomous cars real, how that actually allows a doctor in Peru to perform a surgery on somebody in New York, how that actually does. When you see the response, now all of a sudden you say, you know what? That little 3 sentences we said about, did you know, when 5G is in your life, this happens, got such a big response. Why don't we now have our graphic designer make an infographic real quick around 5 things you don't know about 5G, and let's post that at 3:37 p.m. today. And then when that goes well, then you decide, why don't we make a quick little video on our iPhone talking to Lars in R&D? He knows a lot about this shit. Let's go over to him. Lars says, and then you just post it, not with what's quality, with green screen and lighting. I mean, I was powdered before I came on here right now. That to me is not the variable of success of this talk. That was not going to be the variable that made this go well or not. It was what I was going to say. And Lars, with an iPhone with bad lighting, saying something thoughtful, and then that posted at 7:04 p.m. on our Twitter to the small group that matters. And so when you get into that mindset, you can see how it works. And it's really just having writers, designers, something we call predators, shredditors, which are people who can film and post-produce for the channel all in one person. Talent, humans, commitment to being able to pay those people to do the thing because you value that more than the lighting in your booth in Spain at a conference. The single thing I'm most proud of sitting at Cannes is there's not a human here, not one, that makes more creative output than I do on a daily basis and collective, period. That is an audacious but factual statement. There's not one person here that makes more content than I do. And I'm a CEO of a company, not a creative. And in that, you can imagine in a world where me and my team are producing 40 to 100 pieces of content a day across all these platforms, there's a practitionership that allows me, I mean, the amount of mistakes, you know, it's fun to have D-Rock here because he's on the text chain with me and my team. We change our mind 7 times a month. I constantly shit on my own self once a week. Like I emphatically on Monday say, it's all about this, and literally next Tuesday go, if we ever do that again, we're fit. I mean, this is real life. This is the truth.
So you're testing and learning with yourselves?
At a scale that is unseen right now and should be replicated by everyone, which gives me much better insights to what the consumer's reacting to. And then obviously I'm a human with a certain kind of flavor, so that doesn't map to Dove the same exact way. So there's macro things we see that we deploy and then we see how it plays out. It's never literal from me to, I'm a human, I'm a 43-year-old man. There's a lot of things that don't navigate, but there's a lot of truths that we navigate, that we test and learn there, and that we scale. So it is the ultimate test lab. I've loved myself the whole time, thank God, most don't. But I haven't allowed me to get high on my own supply. My humility is my great offset to my confidence. And I think that manifests, and I think one of the things you were saying, when you were saying it, I knew what you were saying, which is you have the luxury of seeing really behind the scenes, truly. Yeah. And I think what you know is, forget about like giving to a nonprofit, it's just the genuine kindness of replying to somebody's request or doing something for somebody with no ask, no expectation, and nobody knows. And you know this because you run in entrepreneurial circles like I do, and you know when you stumble on somebody who knows me as well, they're gonna bring up something that I did that was nice and nobody knows about it. And that is only one thing, that is called humility. My big thing is this, you can have anything you want, first of all, because who am I or who's anybody else? Do you, comma, just ask yourself why. Are you so insecure that you need the logo of the BMW or the table at a club, or what, do you need that for affirmation of others, or do you actually enjoy the taste of alcohol, the speed of a car? I forced somebody to leave the media team and now work in project management, a very junior employee. She's been with us for 18, 24 months. I, from the tippy top, all the way down to the London office on the micro media team, demanded, as a dictator, to move her from media to project management on 2 things. 1, she was not having a good relationship with her managers, and it was neither of their faults after I investigated personally. And 2, through the series of her communicating with me, I thought that she had tremendous organizational skills. And I saw her yesterday and she was so happy. I'm a CEO who happens to also have tens of millions of followers on social media, does public speaking, I'm here for things like this. I'm stretched incredibly thin, and yet I was able to execute against that. And this is not me saying it for everybody who's listening to think I'm good or whatever. It speaks to intent. Either, let me save everybody a lot of time on this incredible mission that this podcast is on. Either a company is about its people or a company is about money. Any company that is publicly traded or has a board that has control over the CEO, she or he has to pander to something outside of their employees. Independence, whether in the micro or at massive scale, at least gives you the chance to be employee-centric.
So how did you communicate that to her and how did she receive it?
Well, it was in the conversations I was having to her about her not being happy, and then also double checking and hearing from her managers that maybe it's her fault, was data I was collecting, and then I came over to the top with HR and finance and just requested the move. So I didn't even communicate to her that I was doing the move. It just happened. When I saw her, I'm not sure she knows how much or how little I had to do with it. And I'm not really in the business of getting stars on my shirt, but I'm really happy about it. And whether it works out or not, I have no idea. But the moral of the story for everybody, one more time, especially if you're listening right now and you have the power. You know, something I said yesterday to the London office was everything at VaynerMedia is my fault. There's 1,000 things wrong right now. There's 8 to 80 people that are responsible for that, but at the end of the day, I hired and empowered those 8 to 80. If you are lucky enough to have control, and you're listening right now, and if you're listening to this, you care about the things that we care about, please look yourself in the mirror and realize you're the one that has the ability to make the change that you ideologically believe in. I don't like college for the value prop for a big percentage of people. I think college works for, somebody left a comment yesterday on my Instagram that like, Gary Vee, you convinced me to stay in school. And I was pumped. And I was like, yes, this kid is hearing me. I'm not cheering on college, I'm cheerleading for self-awareness. There's no such thing as one thing works for everyone. And one of the scariest things in American society, one of the scariest things is parents putting pressure on kids to go to school to make the parent feel good and making the kid take on debt for that when the kid doesn't feel like they want to do that. And then they come out the other side and they literally spend the next 15 years trying to reconcile that debt. That's why you have a lot of unhappy people. And then what that means is then they go, yay, I'm gonna vote for the person that's gonna wipe out college debt, right? Because that's your short-term issue, just like other people vote to the Republican side on their short-term issue, which then leads to accountability issues, which leads into people like, Google needs to take care of me. This is how the machines are gonna win. You understand that, right? I don't want the machines to win. I want all of you to think every single thing is your fault without judging yourself into depression. Which, you know, everything's your fault, that's a great thing, means you're in control, let's go.
I'm curious now, how do you find the balance between being a great husband, between being a great father, having great health, and building a great empire? And what do you feel like you could improve more in at this season of life?
You know, I think, you know, back to extremism, right? Like the extreme, which I use, you know, all of it can be better and all of it is just great. I think, you know, here's a good place to go with this. Let's really bring value. So you can go back, you know, 4 years ago and listen to like how I think about extremism going hard and then vacationing hard, and it's all there. I think what this has evolved into is something a little bit deeper and more important that I hope really brings somebody value right now, which is stop beating yourself up and stop judging yourself. We all go through chapters, right? Like sometimes you're super in love with your partner and like that's all you can obsess about. You know, it feels like you've been through that chapter recently. Like, yes. Like other times you're, you know, super into your profession because you got a new initiative and you got to go, it's another baby. Sometimes it's an actual baby. And by the way, for some people, the first 2 years are actually super boring because the baby does nothing. And it's okay to not be like blown away and spending every second. On the flip side, if you just can't believe this little miracle and you need to like work out, like I think this comes down to judgment. Stop beating yourself up. There is not even a close framework for what's right. Everyone's balance is massively individual. This company is a complete and utter reflection of the way I was parented and the circumstances in which I was parented. 100%. I think that This company is optimistically practical. So, and that's uniquely what I can bring to the table in this company. So this company is extremely young and coastal, which means it's unbelievably socially liberal, which is incredible because I am as well, but that also leads to vulnerability. And so my practicality and immigrant upbringing and like merit-based infrastructure helps us a lot when the most senior leaders do things that are currently popular but are unbelievably scary to me of what that could lead to a month later. I mean, Slack at VaynerMedia is like dark Reddit. Like, you know, like there's a lot of good, but there's plenty of dark. And like, that's just the nature of what happens, especially when what's happening outside the four walls of VaynerMedia is happening in our society, which is activating people in a completely different way than a decade ago, or 2 decades ago, or 2 decades from today. And so, yes, I feel like I'm very fortunate to be the human that I am during this time, because I think I have practical optimism. I could be micromanaging in the philosophy, but you know, I think if you speak to anybody who's been a direct report of mine over the last decade, the biggest argument and issue they have is I'm not involved enough. I am in the bat phone business. What that means, since I'm using a Batman reference, and I'm not sure how big Batman is in Sweden, or now that we're going global on the podcast, I'm in the business of being in responding to. So I have no interest in micromanaging until there's an issue at hand. And so, yes, somebody could say that philosophically, but in actual practitionership or operational, the way this, you know, energy that I'm speaking about manifests in reality is you're only putting your finger in the hole that is biggest in your boat at that moment, which means there's a lot of boat left for those people to run.
I think also, do you go into the mindset of knowing like, this could be 100 million or it could be 0 and you're okay if it's 0, or do you still?
I go into everything thinking it's gonna be 0.
Really?
Yeah. It really makes it, why do you think, notice, doesn't that make sense? Now all of a sudden, I go in with no hope.
No expectation.
No expectation. I don't do it for my kicks and the giggles. I think it's gonna work.
Yeah.
If I'm running it, it's gonna work because that's what I'm good at. Mm-hmm. But almost everything I don't run. I don't run Pure Wow 137, Harwood does. I don't run Vayner Sports, AJ does. I don't run Vayner Speakers, Zach Nadler does. I'm impacting the living shit out of those businesses. You're influencing
them, yeah.
Oh, in a real way.
Yeah.
But, you know, push comes to shove, I don't make those decisions. And so, and I support my partners in crime. And so that's kind of how it is. Health keeps me up at night. The health and well-being of the 12 people that I'm closest related to or love the most as a friend scares the out of me. Like way more than it scares most people. I think about it all the time because I don't care about the work enough. Like it's what my passion is, but like if a core 12 person in my life is terminally ill or passes away, it will shut me down. So that keeps me up. Professionally, I'm not kept up. I'm capable, I'm talented. Business is tricky because we don't treat business the way we treat music artists and athletes, but I think it's much more similar to that than it is other things. So like once you know you're a good athlete, like you may not win every game, but like LeBron's not confused that he's bad. You know, he doesn't think like tomorrow he's not gonna be able to play. He may not win every game, and I genuinely feel like I'm that. Like I'm not gonna miraculously tomorrow not be what I've been for the last 38 years of my life, which is a disproportionately successful business human, right? So I'm good. When you're innovating, you're gonna be misunderstood. Like when we decided 3.5 years ago to film everything, I knew that wasn't gonna be so easy to navigate life. I mean, at least this setting is somewhat normal. How about in your normal day-to-day when you're just going to a normal meeting and you're being filmed, like people are gonna cast judgment, and I don't want to come across that way. It's just that the value of content at scale is the cost of entry for success, in my opinion, of this next decade. And yeah, that's why we do it. My definition of success for me is to be able to do what I want to do at all times, always, and be happy about it. Having freedom is everything.
Has that changed over the years?
No, but I don't think I didn't realize what was going on in my youth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, no, I wasn't, it's hard for you to really know yourself completely at this point. You'll look back and realize it was all the same shit. By articulating it takes time within yourself, and also just takes time of you actually executing on it. Back to like the sub-context of what we're talking about here, one of my biggest problems right now of like everybody who's trying to make positive impact is they're doing semantical work, not actual work, right? They're jockeying for their personal reputation by what they wear or what hashtag they use, not necessarily what they're actually doing. And if they actually ask them, once they actually embrace the fact that they're being selfish, then they can become selfless. If you actually make pretend nobody else lives on earth, nothing is scary.
Why is the opinions of others such a heavy thing for people to overcome?
I think it's humanly, like, this is where I think like, this is truly my great gift. I'm so grateful for it. I think people got caught. I think they just get caught that everybody's in this framework of other people's opinions. Like, just, it's how we're raised. Like,
how do we train ourselves to get out of it if it's something for 10, 20, 30 years, 50 years we've been living that way?
The same way I trained at 38 and a half that I have no way taking care of my health. I don't like eating habits. I don't like exercising, and just pounding. Every day, everybody should, this is why I put out so much content. Maybe today's the day that I say it a different way that makes people realize their mom and their girlfriend and their boyfriend and their uncle, and definitely anonymous people on social media, and Louis and Gary's opinions actually don't matter. Wow, the liberation to then actually do shit. And now you're doing shit full throttle because of whether you win or lose, it doesn't matter. You can't hear the cheering. This is why I'm trying to get people out of hearing the cheering. It's my newest thing in the last year or two. I'm like, wait a minute, right. Because everybody says you're so hot on Instagram that when they say you're not, you start doing plastic surgery, right? When everybody says like, you're such a great business person, you start keeping up that facade instead of, like, it just makes so much sense. So to me, the biggest thing is the humility was such a factor. I didn't realize how big of a deal that was, how much that worked for me. Is like, I don't believe I'm as great as I know I am. Like, my logical side knows that I'm up to something, but I just don't internalize it. I won't let it penetrate my soul. I think I have the ability to be the biggest deal, but I will never believe it. I actually like losing more than winning, I've come to learn. This is something I'm really trying to reconcile. I actually like losing more than winning. It speaks volumes to why I'm obsessed with the Jets and Knicks, and completely have abandoned the Yankees and the Rangers after they won a championship. I like losing more.
Micro losing or macro losing?
Micro losing, but everything is micro losing besides death or bankruptcy.
Like being the underdog?
Yep. Like, I just don't give a f what you guys think. And that goes from you all the way up to my parents. That, by recognizing that you guys don't have nor my parents has all the context. Nobody fully knows you. It's actually through empathy.
At what age was that like?
Early. Like, I can't believe how now, understanding a little bit more, back to like being in your own cocoon, I can't believe the mentality I brought into high school. Like, to navigate high school the way I did, which is like completely and utterly not affected by peer pressure in hindsight, is wild to me. That takes a level of like self-confidence at such an early age that I think I just understand so much more of what I am now, really on that window, because that is such a tough spot. And that.
Do you attribute that to your parents and the work from a young age, or
yes.
Just your parents?
The DNA my parents gave me, clearly the way that my mother raised me, having to earn my keep, and then just like DNA, man, just like that voice that we all have. Like, I just always felt that I was better. And here's where it gets really good. But if the world showed me I wasn't, like, I remember going through, this is actually interesting, I don't know if I've ever shared this. I remember vividly going through the ages of like 7 to like 16, being stunned anytime I didn't win in something. Like, shocked. Like, just could not believe that Rick was better at tennis, or John just beat me in one-on-one, or I wasn't the fastest in my class, or like just shocked. And and I've been thinking about that lately because it sparked in me a few months ago. I'm like, wait a minute, that was weird. What was that? Because I just kind of remembered it. Like shock. I remember actually what seemed in my mind as a disappointing thing at the time, and now I look as a great thing. I remember thinking somewhere around 13, 14, 15, that I lost my expectation of always winning in everything every time. And I remember thinking like that wasn't good, but in hindsight, I think it was great because the reality is I got into this place of complete and utter confidence, but being able to not come up with excuses if it didn't work out. Like watching people like lose and then blame the sun. Like literally, like I overheard it a couple of weeks ago somewhere. I was walking I'm on vacation. I overheard it. Like this kid lost to his cousin. It seemed to me they didn't look like brothers, and he was blaming the sun. And it took everything I had to not like roll in and be like, bro, I love you, but like you need to realize like the sun was there for him too. And I think a lot about that accountability. Like if you're coming up with excuses. Like being super confident, filled with excuses when it doesn't work out is called delusion. So I feel great because I love process. I think you should invest, whether it's you or the person below you, but no further than that, over 100 hours of qualitative consumption of every personal brand trying to convert on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube to just see if there's anything you see. One of the biggest mistakes, one of the things I've never talked about that literally this might be the first time I'm talking about, this is what's good about 2 weeks vacation. You get to think like, I don't know if I'm articulating enough to people how much research I'm doing. I'm doing it with audience. I'm not seeing what Richard Branson's doing or I don't do that. I just consume everything my audience is doing with me. Everything, all of it. I'm just reading all the comments. How do you speed up things? Less rules. How do you speed up things? Less process. How do you speed up things? Less fear. This is something that has been my calling card for 20 years, and it is out of complete and utter lack of fear, complete and utter disdain for process that is in the mix for the sake of process. Obviously some process is needed. And this is ultimately was the first reason I got into culture, besides having good DNA about liking people. It was that I understood that if people were motivated and excited, that great things would happen versus fearful and political. The type of leader that will create this is one that really focuses on those three things that I just mentioned.
For someone like myself who wants to go into entrepreneurship ultimately and start a business, I'm interested in several areas like media, emerging tech, all that, but I don't really know which specific thing I want to do. Would you say to start at some company first and then kind of figure it out from there, or just kind of go?
How do you learn?
I think mostly by doing. So
then don't go to a company.
But I feel like there's a lot of I guess pressure in a sense to go.
You can stop this sentence right there. You know that you learn that way, but you're gonna do something else based on somebody else.
Yeah, well, makes sense.
That's what everyone's doing, bro. And so everyone's sitting around and trying to figure out why all these young people are so upset. It's because of all this. Because they were over-coddled by a generation of over-coddling parents, and they don't know how to do their own shit. And I think they can do tons of shit and believe you can do so much as long as you tune out. Are you in a place where you're comfortable to do what I lived through? I lived it. I lived a world where, now I'm me, but 26-year-old me was ringing up my friends from high school at my dad's liquor store when they rolled in with their BMW because they went to a good school and started working at Goldman Sachs and could afford one, or not really, but they wanted to look like they could, and they were buying a case of Moet Chandon, and I was ringing it up for them, and this is real stories now, and carrying the case to their car and putting it in their trunk. I walked in feeling fulfilled because I was happy I made a sale. They were leaving there feeling unbelievable because Gary's bringing out my case. The problem was that was just when we were 26. Now that we're 43, it's real different. I just had the internal strength to deal with that scenario. 99% of you aren't. When every entrepreneur who's listening right now knows one thing that I know, that your business is your second child, is your third child, is your fourth child. I have no idea how many children everyone has. That's the answer, because I'm treating my business like a parent.
Or your spouse.
Yeah, but even more like a parent, and I'll tell you why. With a spouse or a partner, that's a lateral relationship, whereas a child or a business, you're in charge of it. You're grooming it. You know, it's almost like your garden, right? Those tomatoes are gonna come out, that's you, with the macro. I can't control Mother Nature, just like I can't control the world, but I can maximize my tomatoes this year if I do good behavior, and that's how I think about my businesses.
How can you talk about how you foster a relationship that engages both employees and customers? Because I see this being outside of the company walls. This is the style your company has towards customers as well, seeing them as people. How do you foster that kind of leadership?
By holding people accountable that have clout in doing the same.
Clout means influence.
Yes.
And ability to change things.
Yes. It is imperative that the 50 most senior people in my company have somewhere between an 80 to 99% of this in their soul as well. I can't ask them to be 100% of the same intent that I have, as much as possible, and then it is my job, back to the earlier statement of everything's your fault, when you have control, it's my job to make the tough decision when somebody no longer is allowed to be in our company when they don't embody that mission. The biggest challenge I had to face was about year 6. I was creating entitlement because I was putting too much on my own shoulders.
What do you mean by entitlement?
I was making it too easy for everybody and people got entitled.
Within the company?
Yep.
So you were saying, I'll take this on.
In the macro. I was creating so much top line revenue and everybody was getting raises like crazy, and I was creating such a great culture that I made us soft, which is wild.
Because you were doing the sales and the pitching and everything yourself?
I was impacting so much that 300, 400, 500 people had it too easy, and we had to do like a 35-person layoff because I just had to cut the fat, because I didn't need to do it financially. I needed to do it to just culturally get everybody to understand, like, these people that were just like, weren't good at their job. They were nice people, but if we keep carrying this will die.
They weren't great at their job. They were
not even close. They weren't even close.
Yeah.
It was nice people over everything, and that was it. If you weren't nice, you were getting fired. But if you were nice, that was tough. And it was tough for me to realize, wow, on Tea with Gary Vee, on keynotes and interviews, on the stage, I have great candor and accountability, but in my own shop, I wasn't candorous enough, and I created entitlement because I love happiness and and all that.
And everyone loving you, and yeah.
But I went too far with it, so that was tough. That was a moment, because I never got to that level with Wine Library, because it was still happening there, but it was a small enough business and a family business, and it was real family, cousins and best friends, that it had a different dynamic. So I didn't see it coming. So that was interesting. Measuring the ROI of something isn't predicated on just doing it. It's predicated on how good you are at it, right? So like, this is where people get caught with this question. Everything I'm about to say, the complete variable is how good you are at the thing. That includes television. The place where everybody gets caught in television, in Instagram, in Amazon, in everything, is they get something to work in their math, and then they don't realize that they can still innovate their creative to do better. Let's come out of this leaning into humility and gratitude, and that will be the springboard to everything you want. If you can, just be grateful. Yes, you lost your job or your business is not as good, but your grandfather didn't die from Corona. Just be grateful. Grateful for the time you're spending with family now, grateful for the innovation time, the thinking time. I'm sleeping more than ever. I put on a couple pounds, so I got to be a little bit more careful, but I'm gaining real muscle. I'm starting to really do it.
Strong, man. Let's play some ball soon.
But I'm going to dodge you on that. You're too good. But gratitude and humility. Other people I'm watching here are 24 and are regretting shit already. I'm like, okay, I need to help them think about this, because that's a bad framework. Because if you regret, if you're that insecure, if that's your perspective, then you have no right answer. Because if you go and travel and you're 34, whatever you are financially or professionally at 34, you're gonna be like, I should have worked more, Argentina. If or if you do the other thing and you work your face off, you'll be like, I ended up just like Gary. All my friends had fun, and yeah, I got $1 million in the bank, but I'm sad because I wish I went to the beach more often. So either you're in that framework or you're not, which is a great way to put a bow on everything I've been telling you. You want to blame other people, the government, Google, knock yourself out. You will go to the grave blaming somebody for something. I think people have now aspired to be an entrepreneur when they're not, and those are the people that are going through depression, are suicidal, are unhappy because they're in a game that doesn't match them. So when I say that, I'm playing chess. It's never a one size fits all. I want to see what the person says next. I'm looking for the tell. Got it, brother?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, listen, don't overstress. You got patience. Your 20s is a good high risk, high reward time. If it's in you, if you said that to me, if Gary said to Gary, yo, go to Europe, go this, I'd be like, F you.
Right, me too.
Well, that's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Because when the kid says, yeah, you're right, I'm like, I couldn't, okay. And I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
I had to do it every second. I couldn't breathe. This is when you're a natural purebred, you're in Beyonce, LeBron, Pablo Picasso category. You're an artist.
Yeah.
You're an artist. There was no choice. I'm not doing this for the flex or the gram or the money or the house or the jet I don't want a single thing. I don't want to be part of any exclusive club. I don't need an island. I don't need a house. I need the game.
Yeah.
I need the game. Sales and marketing is mixed, and that means you're actually doing sales. And if marketing is put into a place where it's all upside, because marketing is gray. It is intuitive, right? Yeah. So if the rule is 500,000, I'm making shit up. And there's no, at the end of the day, it's if you were the head of it for me, I'd be like, it's 500,000, and my team will tell you this. James will definitely tell you this. It's I don't give a f. We'll talk at the end of the year. Explain yourself. But I have no judgment. I'm not booing or cheering along the game. Just tell me when it's 000 and explain to me why we lost 112 to 88 or why we won 112 to 88, and you just hold that person accountable. That's how marketing needs to work. Because that's marketing. You have to be able to do something ridiculous, like buy $50,000 worth of bananas and send them to dentists just because it's so ludicrous that they're like, what the f? You see where I'm going now? As silly as what I just said to you, you would be shocked how smart what I just said actually is based on how silly it sounds. The world is busy. Yeah. The way you break through is by breaking patterns. If you're a dentist and you get a banana sent to you in the mail and you wrote a note on it in pen, that's just weird. Weird enough to give you awareness. I do not like negativity. And so in my early years, since I started running companies right from the beginning, my historic vulnerability that I continue to work on and is far great in a better place than it used to be is in my unbelievable disdain for confrontation and negativity. I wasn't candorous enough and would surprise people when I would fire them. And also created a level of entitlement, which usually led to the firing, because they weren't getting negative feedback, they were just getting positive reinforcement.
And then suddenly something happened.
And they became delusional. No, and unfortunately, it wasn't that suddenly something happened. For the last 3 years, they've always been bad at these 3 things. I just don't focus on negatives. I focus on positives. They don't hear anything about it. and then they get called into the meeting probably thinking they're about to get a raise because 4 weeks ago I gave them a high five about something they do well, and then I'm like, hey Jan, hey Rick, we're gonna have to talk about you not being here, and they would be flabbergasted, and I would defend my actions to myself in my 20s and early 30s on they're delusional, how did they not know, couldn't they tell? But a lot of people don't deploy the self-awareness that I was gifted with. It's not, and more importantly, employees always have other side, like everybody, there's always two sides to a story. So over the last 3 or 4 years, and I'll tell you that my brother AJ, who was 22 years old when he became my partner at VaynerMedia 10 years ago, he is far, he's a good balance. My dad is overcritical and only focused on the negative. So I think I naturally was over positive, but then being in the same company with him and a father-son, I almost had to be 100% positive to offset 100% negative, and that's the truth. You need to figure out who you're most upset about losing in front of.
What if it's literally everybody?
That's great. Then you need to start really thinking about creating behavior to make yourself lose more. You basically are in the same place that a slow maturing 11-year-old is who hasn't started swimming yet. The only answer to your question is to jump in the pool. If you were like my younger sister, I would tell you that everything you should do for the next 5 years are things that you're likely gonna lose at until it becomes so numb that it changes your relationship with losing. Hating to lose in the way that you're describing it is completely predicated on not being able to deal with other people's judgment. And that is a tough spot to be in. You gotta reconcile that with, I'm probably the most competitive person I've ever met, or just in the mix with the other people. So I'm trying to win. I don't want to lose, but I respect the game enough to accept it, and I weirdly get good tingles from it because it excites me to try again. Everybody f***s up marketing because they're gonna always lean into sales because they need to hit short-term objectives. The end. That's where leadership has to come in and create rules for engagement. It's why I love 80-20. It's why I love Army and Navy SEALs. It's why I win. I create businesses like Vayner that is my foundation of 80, and then I taste with 20% around it. That's how VaynerX got built, and then even outside the Vayner universe, that's how the K-Swiss and the Empathy Wines and all that, this is how it all works. That's marketing. Because everybody's a sales, you're a sales organization. So let's put a little fund on the side or a little team on the side, and that's marketing. And if it goes to dead zero, you've decided at the macro level that $800,000 to dead zero is super fine by me, because it's not gonna be dead zero, but now you've created autonomy and lack of confusion and to actually make that happen. If you actually knew that you would never find out what the alternative was, would get real good. You know how easy it is for me to make decisions? Super easy. Do you know why? I wouldn't know what the alternative was.
You don't overthink it.
Because it's not practical. I don't have time to dwell on the fact that I passed on Uber twice, which was my best friend of any investment that I made. Every person I invested in was not as close to me as Travis was, and for some miraculous cosmic reason, I passed on Uber twice, which means that my $50,000 investment, which would have been worth $700 million today, didn't happen. And when I tell you I don't think about it at all, here's why. I'm smart and thoughtful enough about knowing how life works. Had I made that investment, everything would be different. Maybe I'd be going to India to give a keynote about that investment because I would have a much bigger profile, much different resources, and maybe in that private flight, maybe that flight would have gone down and I would be dead.
So you just don't overthink the other possibilities, because I always find that that's hard.
It's the biggest weakness everyone has.
Yeah.
They're trying to spend time on something that doesn't exist. There is no time machine. Sorry, you picked the wrong school, or sorority, or girlfriend, or major. Sorry. What are we gonna do? We're gonna build a time machine here?
That's your practical optimism?
Sure is. Because it's both optimistic and way more practical.
What is the one piece of feedback you're most curious
The
to get?
truth.
Yeah, but about what?
Whatever the hell is in front of them. Running an operation is not a education or philosophical exercise. What do I want? I want to know exactly what is an issue operationally right this second to you from your perspective in you running your world. And how can I help?
On your leadership, what are you most curious about?
The reverse of that coin. What can I do to put you in the best position to succeed? Are you looking to talk to me more often? Are you talking to me less? Do you need some leeway with your financial P&L? Do you need me to rah-rah the troops? Do you want me to go talk to the most senior client because the client that you work with, which is the second most senior client, is giving you a very difficult time? I am in the ambulance, firefighting, emergency doctor, bat phone business. I am only built to act in helping for you to succeed within this framework. The things we said no to that were actually the trigger to a hotter, to a streak, to a heater, that we said, I hope that heaven is where it shows you what life would have been based on choices. I love that I didn't go to some night where at night would have been these two people that would have made this deal with me. Like, I love knowing that like momentum is based on choice, that I've missed momentum many times in my life, and that I've gotten momentum many times in my life. And I love that part of the game actually, which is like decisions actually matter. And sometimes when you have the humility to go to a thing that doesn't seem right, you get something that triggers a domino. And sometimes when you go to something, you're like, I remember sitting down, there's one meeting I remember very vividly with Howard Schultz. I had a meeting with Howard Schultz to kind of I was getting hot, getting in this, and like I got connected. I remember sitting 4 minutes before it. I'm like, I'm about to walk in here and I'm about to blow this dude's face off and it's going to be a foundational thing. I walked in, we had a 15-minute meeting, 20-minute meeting, and nothing's happened. And I didn't feel like I had an off day. I felt like I gave it, but it didn't click. Whereas when I went to go see Jimmy Iovine, for this meeting, I'm like, I'm gonna go blow his face off. Within 3 minutes, he's like, you're next Simon Cowell. And he casted me in the Apple show, Planet of the Apps, with will.i.am, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Jessica Alba. And if that show actually got seen, unfortunately, it was before all the OTT stuff and the way TV, like that would have been right. And that would have been one of the moments. So, the reality is that,
wow.
Like I love that kind of shit. And then I'm trying to think of like something good where like, who'd I meet randomly? Like I'm trying to think of a real logical thing. Well, I took a meeting with the Jets president at a bagel store because he wanted to sell me a skybox. I told him about where the world was going. We became great friends. That's Matt Higgins, who's on Shark Tank, who's Steve Ross's right hand. That led to him leaving the Jets years later, going to Steve Ross and Dolphins. That became the gentleman who bought a piece of my company. And like that bagel meeting became a monster meeting for me, and I didn't know who Matt Higgins was going into it. So I love chance, I love momentum, and I love what starts momentum. That's where I just took this.
Yeah.
I agree more than to remind everybody right now, say yes. One thing that I hate about people that haven't achieved anything and people that have achieved everything, they overvalue their time. And it's a tricky one. If you haven't gotten there yet, people are like, Gary, I'm not doing that pro bono work. I should be compensated. I'm like, bro, your work's worth nothing. Like there's 700,000 video makers that I can tweet right now. Like, sorry, like when your work's not worth anything, like no humility. And then again, no humility. When people get fancy, I take so many small meetings. I do so many things like tea with Gary Vee in the morning during this COVID crisis to like just help. And once every 8,000 times, it helps me. The amount of money people are trying to replicate my model, but are overspending on the tech or the lighting or the post-production, that's not gonna work. If you're running a motorboat, you don't fill it the same way you fill a cruise ship. It's gonna sink, and that's what people are doing. They're overthinking, and then that led to the next part, which is don't overthink your content. Because that wasn't the physical manifestation, it was the mental manifestation. You know how many owners and CEOs jump in and look at their Instagram account and they're like, I don't like that picture, and it like breaks the whole machine? Like that's, so like all these things.
Can you try and narrow down what is the number one driver of engagement in the workplace?
The ability to listen. The number one driver of engagement is the macro and then the individual employees that make up the company's ability to actually listen. I really...
So cultivating our ability to listen as employees, as managers is a very important focus going forward for you and your organization.
It's the only thing I think about. Mm-hmm. If you think about just to create some levels of clarity here for everybody, the ability to engage and be engaged and things of that nature completely start with the seed of being heard. You know, somebody being heard is completely different than somebody who feels they're not heard.
That's also what research shows.
Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Good. That makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To be seen and to have the opportunity or possibility to influence
the outcome.
Your situation so that you're not trapped.
Nothing makes me more excited than when a junior employee comes, gives a recommendation, and then 7 months later it actually becomes true and they reach out to me and they never think it was them. Hey Gary, Sarah Thompson here. You know, we met 7 months ago. You know, just saw the announcement or just saw this or this just happened. You know, I'm sure it wasn't me and you probably don't remember that I asked you, but I'm so glad it's happening. And then me on a flight at 1:30 in the morning, dear Sarah, it happened because you walked into my office, I heard you, I thought you might be right, I investigated, we did it, da-da-da-da-da-da. It's one of my favorite parts of my job. I'm real passionate about patience. I think the biggest vulnerability to this room, including the coaches and us old guys, is patience. I wish the coaches over here knew how young they were. Watching 30, 40, 50-year-olds completely confused by the context of time is one of the most fascinating things I see in our society. Like, people always come up to me and they're like, Gary, when are you gonna buy the Jets? And I'm like, 25 years. And they get sad as like they think, they like want me to have it tomorrow. And I'm like, I just don't build wealth like that. I'm just like one brick at a time. I'm not gambling out here or hoping or dreaming. I already f***ed up by passing on Uber twice in the angel round. That would have made me my billion. So I missed that shot. So the reality is that I'm just building blocks. And so, you know, whether you deploy this, what I'm talking about right now, to like how you're thinking about cracking the starting lineup or why you're pissed you're on special teams but you should be starting, or whatever bullshit excuses you come up with in your own head, the reality is patience as an overlay is remarkably important. The reason so many things are easy for me is I don't give a f***. He's using my signature on a thing. I have no idea what the f*** he's talking about. My signature is my most important IP. And I don't give a f*** because I like him and fine, Nate did something, want to sell 5 bottles, 15 cases, 40K. Like, but like, do you know how many people would freak the f*** out with that?
Yeah.
So like, it just matters. The answer is very individual. You know? Yeah. There's like, most of the things I do, most people don't agree with. Most of the things I do, most people don't agree with because I'm unique in my lack of interest in short-term money. And I'm now starting to debate even money in itself. I just like my process. One thing I love about athletes is if they get to the right place mentally, they're in a place where they're always ready to get booed. I genuinely think the reason I'm super successful is because I got booed my whole life. I was an immigrant, couldn't speak English, got booed. I was a terrible student, a couple miles away from here, got booed, right? I was small as and not good enough at sports, got booed. I got booed at everything, which made me a great entrepreneur because I'm ready to get booed. I love being booed. I love L's. The reason I love the Jets and Knicks so much is they haven't won shit. I grew up a huge Yankees and Rangers fan. As soon as they won a title, I was out. I'm about to climb. I love losses. I love pain. I'm serious, I love it.
In your view, how aware are the average business leaders of the correlation between employee engagement and profitability?
Non-existent. Because CFOs are too literal, an Excel sheet, and 90%, if not 99%, are not deploying emotional intelligence above their financial intelligence, and they are spreadsheet basics. And
do we need new KPIs?
Yes.
How do we clarify this correlation? Because it is there. Research shows it's there. You've seen it. Others have seen it.
Research oftentimes and reporting doesn't penetrate a cliche CFO. You know, no matter what you and I come and talk from personal experience. Somebody else comes from an academic point of view on this, shows, dear CFO, you are wasting $4.9 million a year of people sitting there and crying and not working, and if you had better engagement, I know that to be true. In my bones, I know that a proper culture creates a scenario where people have better output in the time that they deploy. I know that as an intuitive human. But now let's have some empathy in the other direction. If you're the CFO of Ericsson and you have to report numbers, and you have to report numbers every 90 days, it gets very hard for you to make the investment. Let's play this out. Okay, so Rick and Susan hear us and they deploy, they're bought in, they believe in you and I. What happens next? Well, you have to start putting in money to put into programs. You have to put in money to put into human beings that rev up the culture. All of a sudden, we asked the CFO, who's looking every 90 days on a whim in their mind, because it's not mathematically quantitatable no matter what our reports show, they have to pour money into this for the hope that later it pays dividends.
It's called investment.
I've heard people don't invest.
Should I try to double or triple down on my strengths within each business as far as scheduling time and doing my thing?
You personally?
Yes.
100%.
Okay.
Like nothing I believe in more than the fact that most people lose is they waste time on trying to fix shit that's never fixable. And what I mean by that is, I'm not gonna be an NFL quarterback. And I'm not gonna be not high energy. Do you guys understand that if I was 13% less high energy, that I would be 2 times bigger? There's a lot of people that can't deal with my energy. Do you understand that if I didn't curse, that I would have 12 million followers, not 6? Like, people don't get it. Like, but I'm just a buyer of like being who you are. I could be so much bigger if I toned it down a hair, cleaned up a little language today, not in 12 years.
Sword playing, yeah.
Got it? Mm-hmm. Understand?
Yep.
That's how I think about strengths and weaknesses. I think that, giving is intoxicating once you get into it, but you can't give if you're not in a place of giving. And that doesn't mean money. That means happiness. And I think Ed, you, me, others, I'm really, really excited. I think the alpha male winner is starting to evolve. I don't think it means being a pushover, like some people get concerned that our culture is getting too woke on that. I think it means rounded in that, like, I want people to feel comfortable in their selfishness. I love saying, I'll do it right now. I want everybody to sign up for winetex.com if you buy wine. Now that's my dad's business, but that is like my family business. So I want people to promote their thing. I wanted people to buy K-Swiss. I want them to buy Empathy Wines. I want them to go to VaynerMedia and VaynerX.com and work with my companies. I want that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't want people to disguise, like what happens. You get into this gratitude guilt frame where when you're saying something, you hedge it with like, but it's altruistic. I'm like, you can have both. You can be altruistic and give and be awesome and be selfish and have a boat and a house and millions of dollars. Like, it's all good. And by the way, you can also do whatever you want. But there is no balanced conversation right now. It's almost like you have to be foofy, give away everything, or completely rogue, I'm all about me. And the reality is everybody's in between. And I want to be great at both, right? Like bleeding out of my eyeballs till 3 a.m. this whole week, every day, and being exhausted, but knowing that I'm one of the 3 energies. There's 5 energies. Alan Tisch, Michael Rubin, the founder of it, and me, and then Fanatics' company and VaynerMedia's company, they're working right this second, that have helped in 5 days to raise $10 million. That's going to feed some kid in Mississippi, some elderly woman in Westchester. Like eat. Not to mention all the happiness that comes when you're the person that wins the speaking role in Leo and you're just a normal person. And for months, you and your friends are just happy every day talking about it.
Yeah.
83 people in your world, there's so much good that can be done, both selfless and selfish. And people always ask me, Gary, I want to impact people the way you do or change the world, these very heady things. I'm like, well, just do it for one person. It's action. Everybody, people love to ideate or pontificate, but they don't do. And so for me, this is a game about doing. So yes, be that change, but be that change as somebody who does it within what they can control. You knocking on the door of the CEO and demanding XYZ is very cute, but you're not sitting with all the context. The biggest thing that I've observed when I've talked to teams and now speaking to a lot of kids, the top for me is how many people in this room, when they go to class or on campus, are in a place where they're headphones in, focused on their shit, given that you have the leverage right now. And the reality is the kids around you that want to say what's up are gonna have the leverage in a decade. I think about this every day. I think about I always, it's funny, when I talk, I always think about, it's funny to have AJ here. By having a brother who's 11 years younger, I kind of got a lot of practice early to spit wisdom or try to be a mentor. I think about what I would tell AJ if he was dramatically more athletic and was sitting in this room. And I would say yo bro, this is just the math around it. Yet, there's 100 people on campus right now who are gonna be the biggest CEOs or players in New York City in 7 years, and right now they're dying to take a selfie with you, but you have no time because you might be caught up that you have the leverage right now, and that's the biggest mistake. It's the biggest, I call it the high school girl rule, right? A lot of people didn't want to talk to certain girls in high school, but 6 years later they really want to talk to them, but they fucked up the leverage because they were a dick in high school. And I think about that a lot, and I think a lot of you are in that position right now. Please don't underestimate or take for granted. Obviously, if you're in this room, for the far majority of you, you had leverage in high school too from your athletics. And so you're used to that by now, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. That leverage is everything in society. It's crazy. I watch it every day. The whole social media thing, watching the biggest, most famous people in our society only 5 to 7 years ago be slow to Instagram because they thought they were fancy and they were celebrities, so they didn't go on, and they made fun of Instagram models, and they made fun of Instagram comedians, and they made fun of people, and now, where that is the currency, and they're not on it, just watching the most famous people in our society grabbing at straws, hitting me up of how do I do this? When just 5 years ago, they had all the leverage, and now we forgot who they were or don't give a shit. It's fascinating.
Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're gonna enjoy, but before that, it's time for the question of the day. I wanna know what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week. When you watch something and get motivated and just get inspired, you have a 35% chance of actually following through. But when you get motivated and then you actually create an action plan for what you're gonna do, you increase it from 35% to 91% chance of you actually following through. And when you share your plan publicly, that jumps to 95% chance of following through. So I want that for you. I want to know your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week. Put it down in the comments below so I can celebrate you.
I am blown away by how many employees have made judgments on their organizations without trying to address it. The amount of my employees that come into my office on year 3 call my bluff finally to address something. I address it in 48 hours, within a month, whatever the issue is. They come back and say, I can't believe you did it. And then give me 31 other things that happened in the first 36 months of their tenure, but they decided to be cynical. They vet with their friends at a beer. They talk about it in the girls' bathroom. They tell their mother, but they never told me or the organization. It is the great shortcoming of employees in our world today. My friends, call the company's bluff. Call the bluff. I mean, if you haven't gone to HR or to the CEO or however your world is structured, well then you have no legs to stand on that the company stinks. If you have and they haven't delivered, vent away. But until you call the bluff, then you're just complaining because you like to complain. Evan, thank you so much for having a couple seconds and being able to tell the Believe Nation a little bit about Empathy Wines. It means a lot to me that you would take this valuable real estate and time on your channel to give me some love. It means a lot. It's just good karma points, and so you're awesome. Thank you. Believe Nation, if you're into wine at all, go to empathywines.com. My whole career's work was poured into producing a wine that rivaled $40 to $60 wine for 20 bucks a bottle. I'm just super excited about this subscription-based wine business. You can order 3, 6, or 12 bottles in subscription form, rosé, white, red. If you search on Instagram or Twitter, you will be blown away. People are literally like, I don't even like Gary Vee, but the wine's good. Super proud of the effort. Thanks, Evan, for the time. Wishing you guys all happy and healthy.
If you want 50 more rules from Gary Vee, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
Who wouldn't want that? And I think that is one of the great things about entrepreneurship. The cost of that is you're always 1 second away from dying, right? Entrepreneurship is scary.